Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're revisiting the nucleus colony that we transferred into the full-size hive in the previous video. I wanted to just show how they were developing. When we put them into that full-size hive, I actually didn't have a feeder or any syrup with me, so I just put some fondant and a pollen patty on them, and I think this week we'll probably transfer or move that out and put a proper feeder on. We've brought a feeder, and it's really important to try and keep the food going into any nukes that you transfer into a full-size hive in order to get them to draw all of those frames of foundation. So far in our quest to develop more colonies this season, we're looking to increase to over 200 colonies from a starting point of around, well, initially it was around 80 or so, 90, and then we've brought in some colonies and we're now looking to develop those by splitting. Some naturally have swarmed. We've been clipping queens, and if you take a look on the Patreon page, you'll be able to subscribe to our content there, and we've got lots more videos that we're posting. We're recording, now that we're into the active season, something like 3 or 4 videos a week, so do take a look at that. And you can also gain access to the podcast there and my coaching group, which also has a Zoom meeting each month. We've also got our Facebook group called Stewart's Beekeeping Basics, and of course there's the podcast, which is called Beekeeping Short and Sweet, so do take a look at those. But today it's just another quick look at this colony to see how they're expanding into that brood nest, get the extra frames drawn, and then hopefully in the next few weeks we'll be able to get a queen excluder and at least a super on them for the summer, and hopefully we'll be able to show you that progressing through the summer. But if you'd like to look at all of the other content, then do take a look at the Patreon page. We're going to be queen rearing. We've actually done some splits using a split board method and an artificial swarm method, and we'll be following those up and showing you in depth how that works and the results that we've had. And some have been really positive and others not so positive, but that's beekeeping. So we'll get the smoker, get our bee suit hoods up and go through into the apiary and show you how these bees are doing. So this is the colony. Just looking at the entrance, there's lots of pollen coming in, so that's good news. Hopefully means that we've got our laying queen in there and everything's okay. At this particular time, it's kind of early May, beginning of May, there is quite a lot of forage out there for the bees, so adding a feeder isn't absolutely necessary, but as soon as that forage dries up, the bees are going to want more food. And looking here, we've got the pollen patty, which the bees are eating, so that's not bad, and we've got the fondant again, which the bees are taking, so that's fine. I'll just pop a bit of smoke under there. Then we can take the crime board off, the cover board, and see how they're doing. So plenty of bees in here, which is great. And just looking down at them, the adult bees look nice and healthy, and the bees are moving across. They've certainly worked a couple of the frames that we've got, so that's always good news when they're starting to move out. But if I take this first frame out, you'll see that although there's lots of bees on it, it's still just foundation, so we've still got a way to go. I like to get the bees drawing the outside face of the outside frames before I add a queen excluder and a super, and the reason for that is that the bees will generally tend to come straight up, and if you leave those outside frames, then it's quite likely that they won't touch them. And then if you hit a period of low forage, what we would call the June gap here, it can mean that the bees don't have enough food in the brood box. If you've taken a super of honey away from them, that might be the only food that they've got. So you do need to be careful that you don't rob them of their food stores, which they've put away specifically to have for that period when there is no forage for them. So they're working that second frame in. Let's have a look at this third frame in, frame number 3. Doing a good job here. Lots of stores coming in, and both sides are filled up with nectar. So this nectar is going to be stored, and once it's capped will be the honey that we know and love. Bees are quite calm. I'm just having a look at the adult bees. They all look nice and healthy here. I hope you're all having a good start to the season. It's been really good for us so far. Just looking down at this frame, lots of sealed brood. There's some open brood with some good healthy larvae in there. And we've also got 1 or 2 rudimentary queen cups. So I differentiate between a queen cell and a rudimentary queen cup by checking that there's an egg in it. So just to point out exactly what we've got here, we've got the rudimentary queen cup at the bottom here, and I always liken it to that little cup that you sometimes have with acorns, where you get the acorn inside that cup, and if you pull the acorn out, you're left with a little cup, and that's what this reminds me of. So I just pull the edges back, just pull the cell open and have a look, and there's nothing in there. So that's not a queen cell, that's a rudimentary queen cup. But while I'm looking, I always look down at the comb, have a look at the capped cells, and in this frame I've actually noticed that we appear to have some wax moth damage. So we're going to just investigate this wax moth damage, which is over in this position here. Now it looks as if I may have already tried to, or have taken out some wax moth, and you can tell that it's wax moth damage because there's usually a little trail beneath the cappings that shows you where the wax moth has been. All we have to do is very gently, ideally with a sharp hive tool, just pick away at the cappings, and sure enough, there we've got, in fact the bee is now attacking the wax moth larvae to try to get rid of it. So we'll just uncap that a bit further, see if we can encourage the wax moth larvae out of the cell. In fact, this bee is actually attacking it, and you can see the wax moth larvae here. So we'll just pull that out, pop it on the cell, on the frame, so you can see it. It's just crawling across here, trying to get back into a cell, and the bees are having a look at it. So we'll just take that off, and we'll drop it onto the grass, let the birds have that, and then we can check the other side. And if you're new to beekeeping, I hope you're enjoying the start to your season. You don't have to rush, you can take your time, no need to get into the bees and have to do it at any particular speed. It's always nice to allow the bees to settle down again quite quickly once they've been inspected. But if you're new and it's all a bit exciting, or you're a bit nervous, then just take your time. Make sure you've got plenty of smoke to be able to use. We're actually using Hessian at the moment, some old Hessian sacks, and although they don't give off a great deal of smoke when the smoker is left, if you just puff it a few times, it reignites the embers inside the smoker box, and you'll see that the smoke will come back very, very quickly. And so if you have a colony that's quite feisty, quite defensive, you might want to use a bit more smoke. So we've got our smoker fuel going again, but that hessian won't go out, it'll just sit there and gradually smoulder, and then when we need it we can just puff away at it. So take your time, nice and gentle. I'm looking down into the cells and I can see some eggs in some of these cells, which is great, but we've also got a queen cell here, and you'll recall that I said that I call them rudimentary queen cups if they don't have anything in them, and there's one just this side. But here we've got a queen cell, and there's actually something in this one. So I'll peel the cell back gently so that I can show you exactly what we've got. So this is a queen cell that has a very young larvae in it, and the white substance that you can see is royal jelly, and this is what the bees are feeding that larvae, and that will trigger it into becoming a queen. But we don't want to have queen cells here, so I'll use my hive tool just to cut that away from the bottom of the cell, bottom of the frame, sorry, and just check now for the rest of that frame to see if we've got any other queen cells. Now we'll move on to the next one. I'll show you how you really, as a beginner, you really need to be checking for queen cells. So we've discovered that we've got queen cells, and you now really, if you've got a nuke, you need to remove all of the additional queen cells and make sure that you've removed all of the queen cells. So keep these frames close to you. Take the next frame, lift it partly out of the brood box, and then we're going to shake all the bees off. And I do that by just throwing my thumbs down onto the top bar 2 or 3 times, and that knocks all of the bees off. Now here you can see that we've got several cells, nothing in that one, rudimentary. This one's got an egg in it, so we'll take that egg out. This one in the corner also has an egg in it, so I'll crush that down. And this one in the middle, that one's empty but is likely to have had an egg put in it fairly soon. And then we'll turn the frame over and have a look at the other side. And you can see how easy it is to check the entire frame when you knock all the bees off. And if you knock them into the brood box, then actually they'll just run around inside the brood box and clamber up onto another frame rather than coming up into the air. And if you were to shake them off, in fact, let's shake the next ones off on top of the frames, and I'll show you what the difference is between shaking them off inside that brood box. Now if I just shake these bees off, I'm just going to look for the queen before I do this. So I know that the queen is marked in here, and I can see eggs, and obviously it's really important that before you destroy any queen cells that you identify the fact that you've got a laying queen, or that you have eggs that the bees can make queen cells from. So if I now shake these off onto the top bars, you can see the difference, the disturbance that creates. All of the bees are now up in the air, and they all want to go back into the entrance. They're piling around to the front of the entrance, and as a beginner beekeeper that might make me feel a little bit more nervous. But if you shake them into the brood box, then they're going to remain for the most part in that brood box. So looking at this frame, no queen cells here, a couple of bees just starting to emerge, and no queen cells on this side. So we can leave that, pop that back in, and the bees will very quickly re-establish themselves on that frame and start looking after the eggs and larvae, the very young larvae that are in there. So moving on to the next one. So again, I'll shake all of the bees off, but this time into the brood box, and you'll see the difference that it makes. So all the bees are down there, 1 or 2 have come up, but nowhere near the disturbance that we had in the previous frame. Lots of eggs in this frame, another. So this is a queen cell because there is an egg there. So I'll just cut that out. And then we look at the other side, and again we've got a couple of cells here which look as if they are likely to be queen cells. And you can, as you build up your understanding of how queen cells are formed, you'll soon realise those that are definitely going to be queen cells and those that are rudimentary queen cups. So we'll just cut those down, check the bottom, nothing there, and so we can pop this one back, ensuring that we put the frame back in the same order that we took it out, the right way round, so that the same face matches the frame that we took out previously. So we'll take another frame out. This one's relatively new, so I'll just have a quick look. I don't think we'll have any queen cells on here. Another way that you could move the bees around is just gently brushing the tops of the bees with your fingers, and that moves the bees away as well. So you can quickly see what's going on in those cells. And on this side, the bees are working it, but they haven't drawn the foundation at the bottom there. So we'll pop that back in. And then this last one, I actually moved one of those frames of foundation in. This is just food stores. Lots and lots of sealed honey. So this is capped honey. So the bees have plenty of food stores. No need to shake that off because I can see that there's no queen cells on it. And then the last two frames are still foundation, so we don't have to do anything with those. What we now need to do is to close this up. So the best way to do that is by moving all of the frames in one go, all at the same time. And you use your hive tool to do this. Pop the hive tool down the side of the brood box and just lever forward slightly, and that will move all of the frames forward. The same this side. Lever forward. Now we've got a little bit of a gap here. I can put my hive tool down against the side of the frame. So against, these are called Hoffman frames. So they have a section on one side that's angled and a flat side on the other, and that gives you the bee space. So I push my hive tool down here and slide them across, and I'm looking across at this particular frame here to make sure that we don't have any bees that are going to get crushed. So a little bit of smoke at the top here drives the bees away, and then I can push that side closed, come across with my hive tool to this side, a little bit of smoke on this edge, and that drives the bees away from that side. And there we are, we've got them so that no bees have been crushed there. And then all we have to do now is to get this final frame in. And this is particularly simple because it's just foundation. But look, we've got a great big cluster of bees here that if I push this down, I'm going to roll bees and crush bees against the side of the brood box. So all we have to do is to gently shake them off onto the top bars. The majority will run down into the hive, and now we don't have that great big cluster of bees, and I can simply slide this frame back in nice and gently and reposition it so that the bees can now start working it. And that's our inspection. Really straightforward. They are starting to throw up a few queen cells, so we need to check them again, and we'll check them again next week. We don't yet need to put a queen excluder or a super on because they haven't drawn out these extra frames, and actually they're doing okay at the moment because you can see all the bees beneath here feeding, so there's plenty of bees underneath that board. So we'll leave them with the pollen substitute, and we'll leave them with the fondant. This fondant actually comes from a company called Modern Beekeeping here in the UK. It's called apipasta. So if you look online for modern beekeeping, I think there's a link in the description beneath the video, but Modern Beekeeping sell this, and I really rate it. We did have some sent to us some while ago, a few seasons ago, to try out, and we shot some videos, so do have a look at those videos. But we continue to buy it in because it is so good, and the bees really do take it down very, very quickly. So I'm not going to put a feeder on it at the moment. There is still a lot of forage out there. We have a great big field of oilseed rape just across the trees from us here. So they're bringing nectar in, and they'll have that for at least another week to 10 days, and they're eating their way through this fondant and the pollen substitute. So they've got enough stores here to be able to continue to draw that foundation out. If you'd like to see more videos, then please do take a look at my Patreon page. We are posting a lot of videos there, and have done. There's over 500 videos available to you there. The vast majority of them are exclusive to our Patreon subscribers. But we'll continue to post videos on a weekly basis now through this season that will be on YouTube for you, and you'll be able to follow our season and watch how we develop our business over this spring and into the summer. Well, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed that. If you've got any questions, then drop me an email via my website, because the comments are disabled because I just don't have time to get to answer all of the comments on YouTube when we're working through the active season. But if you haven't any questions, we'll catch up next time. Thanks for watching.